In the depths of Southeast Asia lies a story that defies conventional wisdom: the transformation of a tiny sultanate into one of the world's wealthiest nations. Brunei's journey began in the 14th century, but its modern tale of prosperity emerged from the most unexpected circumstances. What makes a nation of less than 500,000 people command such economic power? The tale begins in a land where dense rainforests meet the South China Sea, where traditional Malay culture intertwined with Islamic principles to create a unique social fabric. Before its meteoric rise, Brunei was a shadow of its former glory, having once controlled vast territories across Borneo and the Philippine archipelago. By the dawn of the 20th century, this once mighty empire had been reduced to a small protectorate under British influence. Life in early Brunei moved at the pace of nature itself. Fishermen cast their nets in rich coastal waters while farmers tended to their crops in the fertile soil of Borneo. The Sultan's palace, though modest by today's standards, stood as a symbol of continuity and tradition in a world that was rapidly changing around them. Could anyone have predicted that this seemingly peripheral nation would become a symbol of extreme wealth? The British protectorate status, established in 1888, brought both stability and limitations. While it shielded Brunei from external threats, it also created a cocoon of isolation that would later prove paradoxically beneficial. This period of relative quiet allowed Brunei to maintain its cultural integrity while slowly building the administrative foundations that would later support its transformation. The pivotal moment came in 1929 with the first whispers of oil beneath the soil. However, the real significance of this discovery wouldn't be fully understood for decades. The early years were marked by cautious exploration, limited by both technology and expertise. The world was changing, and Brunei stood at a crossroads. Would it remain a quiet backwater, or seize the opportunity that fate had placed beneath its feet? The period following World War II brought new challenges and opportunities. While other nations rushed toward rapid industrialization, Brunei moved with measured steps. The Sultan's government began laying the groundwork for what would become one of the most remarkable economic transformations in modern history. But what made their approach different? How did they avoid the pitfalls that trapped so many other resource-rich nations? The transformation wasn't merely about oil, it was about vision and timing. As the old fishing boats gave way to oil platforms, and traditional markets evolved into modern commercial centers, Brunei maintained a delicate balance between progress and preservation. The question wasn't just how to extract wealth from the ground, but how to transform it into lasting prosperity for a nation. This chapter in Brunei's history raises profound questions about the nature of development itself. How does a small nation maintain its identity while undergoing radical economic transformation? What role does traditional leadership play in modern development? And perhaps most importantly, what lessons can other developing nations learn from Brunei's unique path to prosperity? As we delve deeper into this remarkable story, we must consider not just what happened, but why it happened the way it did. The seeds of Brunei's success were planted long before oil began flowing, in the cultural resilience and strategic patience that would characterize its approach to development. The transformation of Brunei from a modest sultanate to a global financial powerhouse wasn't merely a stroke of luck, it was the result of bold, calculated decisions that challenged conventional wisdom. What drives a nation to break from traditional paths and forge its own unique destiny? The 1970s marked a pivotal turning point when Brunei's leadership made a series of groundbreaking decisions that would reshape its future. While neighboring countries rushed to industrialize and diversify, Brunei chose a different path. The Sultanate focused on maximizing its oil wealth through strategic partnerships and careful resource management. But what made these decisions particularly revolutionary was not just their content, but their timing. Under the leadership of Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah, Brunei implemented what many considered an unorthodox approach to national development. Rather than following the standard development models promoted by international institutions, the Sultanate created its own blueprint for success. The government established sovereign wealth funds decades before they became a global trend, demonstrating remarkable foresight. How did a small nation develop such sophisticated financial acumen? The decision to maintain strict control over natural resources while simultaneously investing in global markets proved transformative. Unlike many oil-rich nations that succumbed to the temptations of rapid spending, Brunei adopted a conservative fiscal policy that prioritized long-term stability over short-term gains. This approach raised eyebrows at the time. Why would one of the world's richest nations per capita choose such a cautious path? Perhaps the most crucial decision was the preservation of traditional governance structures while modernizing the economy. The Sultanate demonstrated that traditional leadership could successfully navigate the complexities of modern global finance. This hybrid model challenged assumptions about the incompatibility of traditional governance with modern economic management. The establishment of the Brunei Investment Agency in 1983 represented another watershed moment. This institution would become instrumental in transforming oil revenues into a diverse portfolio of global investments. But what guided these investment decisions? How did Brunei manage to avoid the pitfalls that trapped other resource-rich nations? The leadership's commitment to maintaining zero national debt while building substantial foreign reserves was revolutionary for its time. This approach provided Brunei with remarkable economic stability and independence, even during global financial crises. What insights can other nations gain from this distinctive approach to national finance? The decision to prioritize education and healthcare while maintaining traditional values created a unique social contract between the government and its citizens. Free education, healthcare, and housing programs were established without imposing income tax, a model that few nations could replicate. How sustainable is this approach in an increasingly complex global economy? These revolutionary decisions weren't made in isolation, they were part of a comprehensive vision for national development. The question remains, can other nations replicate Brunei's success, or was this transformation possible only under its unique circumstances? As we examine these pivotal decisions, we must consider not just their immediate impact, but their long-term implications for both Brunei and the global community. When examining Brunei's extraordinary rise, one must look beyond the obvious presence of oil to understand how a nation transforms natural resources into sustainable wealth. The Sultanate's approach to resource management has become a masterclass in strategic thinking and long-term planning. What distinguishes a nation that thrives from one that merely survives in the resource-rich landscape? Brunei's oil reserves, while significant, are not among the world's largest, yet the nation has leveraged these resources with remarkable efficiency. The key lies in the sophisticated understanding that true wealth isn't merely about extraction, but about transformation. The Sultanate developed a multi-layered approach to resource management that went far beyond simple oil production. The nation's leadership recognized early that their greatest resource wasn't just what lay beneath the soil, but the potential that existed in their small but capable population. By investing heavily in human capital while simultaneously developing their natural resources, Brunei created a unique synergy. How does a nation balance the immediate benefits of resource extraction with the long-term imperative of human development? Innovation in resource management came through the development of advanced extraction technologies and strategic partnerships with global energy companies. Rather than simply allowing foreign companies to exploit their resources, Brunei maintained controlling interests while benefiting from international expertise. This approach raised an intriguing question. How can small nations maintain sovereignty while engaging with powerful multinational corporations? The Sultanate's management of its natural gas resources provides another fascinating case study. By developing sophisticated liquefaction facilities and securing long-term contracts with key Asian markets, Brunei established itself as a reliable energy partner in the region. What makes some resource-rich nations more successful than others in developing sustainable trade relationships? Beyond hydrocarbons, Brunei recognized the strategic value of its rainforests and biodiversity. While many nations sacrificed environmental assets for short-term gains, Brunei maintained strict conservation policies. The preservation of 70% of its original rainforest cover stands as a testament to this foresight. But how does a nation balance environmental preservation with economic development? The development of a sophisticated financial services sector represented another crucial transformation of resources. By leveraging its oil wealth to build modern banking infrastructure compliant with Islamic principles, Brunei created new opportunities for wealth generation. What lessons can other nations learn about transforming natural resource wealth into sustainable financial infrastructure? Perhaps most remarkably, Brunei developed these resources while maintaining one of the world's highest standards of living for its citizens. Free education, healthcare, and heavily subsidized housing became hallmarks of the nation's resource management strategy. The question emerges, is this level of social provision sustainable in an era of increasing global competition? The strategic management of resources in Brunei raises fundamental questions about development in the 21st century. How can nations transform finite resources into infinite possibilities? What role does cultural heritage play in resource management decisions? As we analyze Brunei's approach to resource transformation, we must consider whether their model offers valuable lessons for other developing nations in an increasingly complex global economy. The rise of Brunei represents more than just a local success story. It fundamentally altered regional power dynamics and challenged traditional assumptions about national development. How does a small nation of fewer than 500,000 people manage to exert such significant influence on the global stage? The Sultanate's emergence as a financial powerhouse sent ripples through international markets, particularly in Southeast Asia. Its strategic position between major Asian economies, combined with its substantial wealth, transformed Brunei into a key player in regional politics and economics. The nation's ability to maintain political stability while accumulating vast wealth attracted attention from both established and emerging powers. Brunei's influence extends far beyond its size through strategic investments in global markets. The Brunei Investment Agency has become a significant force in international finance, with holdings spanning real estate in world capitals, stakes in leading corporations, and substantial positions in emerging markets. This financial reach raises intriguing questions about how small nations can leverage wealth to gain global influence. In the energy sector, Brunei's impact has been particularly noteworthy. As a reliable supplier of liquefied natural gas to major Asian economies, including Japan and South Korea, the Sultanate has become an essential player in regional energy security. How does this role affect broader geopolitical relationships in an increasingly energy-hungry world? The nation's unique development model has become a subject of study for economists and policymakers worldwide. Brunei demonstrated that a traditional monarchy could successfully navigate modern global markets while maintaining social stability and cultural identity. What lessons can other nations draw from this distinctive approach to modernization? Perhaps most significantly, Brunei's success challenged conventional wisdom about the resource curse that often afflicts oil-rich nations. By avoiding the pitfalls of corruption, overconsumption, and economic mismanagement, The Sultanate established itself as a model of prudent resource management. But can this success be replicated in different political and cultural contexts? The nation's influence on Islamic banking and finance has been transformative. Brunei's development of Sharia-compliant financial instruments and banking practices has contributed significantly to the growth of Islamic finance globally. How has this small nation managed to influence an entire sector of international finance? In diplomatic circles, Brunei's voice carries weight disproportionate to its size. Its membership in ASEAN and other international organizations, combined with its financial clout, enables the Sultanate to influence regional policies and international agreements. What does this tell us about the changing nature of global power dynamics? The impact of Brunei's development extends into environmental policy. The nation's commitment to preserving its rainforests while maintaining economic growth has become a model for sustainable development. In an era of increasing environmental consciousness, how significant is Brunei's example for other developing nations? As we examine Brunei's global impact, fundamental questions emerge about power, influence, and development in the modern world. Can wealth alone create meaningful international influence? How does cultural authenticity contribute to global standing? The answers to these questions may help us understand the changing nature of global influence in the 21st century. The statistical portrait of Brunei's transformation reads more like fiction than fact, presenting figures that challenge our understanding of national development. What makes these numbers particularly striking is not just their magnitude, but the speed at which they were achieved. Consider this: from 1960 to the present, Brunei's per capita GDP grew from a modest sum to one of the highest in Asia, surpassing even economic powerhouses like Japan and Singapore. The nation maintains zero national debt, a feat accomplished by fewer than 5 countries worldwide. How does a nation achieve such remarkable fiscal discipline in an era of global debt? The Sultanate's sovereign wealth fund, estimated to be worth over $40 billion, becomes even more impressive when considered on a per capita basis. With a population of less than 500,000, this translates to roughly $100,000 per citizen in sovereign wealth alone. What does this concentration of wealth mean for future generations? Education statistics tell another compelling story. With a literacy rate of 97% and universal access to education, Brunei has achieved development indicators that rival or exceed those of many Western nations. The country spends approximately 3.3% of its GDP on education, a figure that becomes more significant considering the size of its GDP. Healthcare metrics are equally striking. Life expectancy has increased from just over 60 years in 1960 to over 77 years today. The nation maintains a doctor-to-patient ratio that ranks among the best in Southeast Asia, with healthcare spending per capita exceeding most developing nations by several factors. The preservation of natural resources presents another remarkable set of figures. While many nations have sacrificed their environmental heritage for economic growth, Brunei has maintained 70% of its original rainforest cover. This conservation effort becomes even more impressive when compared to the regional average of less than 25%. In terms of energy production, Brunei generates approximately 127,000 barrels of oil per day, a modest figure globally, but one that translates to extraordinary wealth given the small population. The nation's natural gas production, at 3.8 billion cubic meters annually, places it among the world's top liquefied natural gas exporters per capita. The absence of income tax, combined with extensive social benefits, creates a unique economic environment. Citizens enjoy subsidized housing, with home ownership rates exceeding 85%. How sustainable is this model of extensive state provision without direct taxation? Perhaps most impressive is the stability of these numbers over time. Unlike many resource-rich nations that experience dramatic boom-and-bust cycles, Brunei has maintained remarkable economic consistency. The nation's inflation rate typically hovers around 1%, while unemployment remains consistently below 4%. These statistics raise profound questions about development, wealth distribution, and sustainable economic management. How does a nation maintain such extraordinary numbers while avoiding the social tensions that often accompany extreme wealth? What lessons can these figures teach us about the relationship between population size, resource management, and national prosperity? Brunei's remarkable journey from a small sultanate to a global financial powerhouse offers a wealth of insights for nations, economists, and policymakers worldwide. As we look to the future, what lessons can we extract from this unique case study in national development? One of the most striking lessons is the power of long-term planning. Brunei's success wasn't built overnight but through decades of careful strategy and measured growth. The nation's leadership demonstrated remarkable foresight in establishing sovereign wealth funds and maintaining fiscal discipline long before these became global trends. How can other nations cultivate this kind of long-term vision in an era of short-term political cycles? The Bruneian model challenges conventional wisdom about resource-rich economies. While many nations fall victim to the resource curse, Brunei managed to transform its oil wealth into sustainable prosperity. This success raises important questions about resource management. Is Brunei's approach replicable, or does it require a unique set of cultural, political, and economic circumstances? Diversification emerges as a critical factor in Brunei's success story. Despite its reliance on oil and gas, the nation has made significant strides in developing its financial services sector and exploring new economic avenues. As global energy markets evolve, how will Brunei navigate the transition to a post-oil economy? The preservation of cultural identity alongside rapid economic development stands out as another key lesson. Brunei maintained its traditional governance structure and Islamic values while embracing modern economic practices. This hybrid approach challenges assumptions about the incompatibility of tradition and progress. Can other nations find similar ways to balance cultural preservation with economic advancement? Looking ahead, Brunei faces several challenges that will test the resilience of its economic model. The global shift towards renewable energy poses a significant threat to oil-dependent economies. How will Brunei adapt its economic strategy to remain relevant in a changing energy landscape? Climate change presents another critical challenge. With much of its wealth tied to fossil fuels and its territory vulnerable to rising sea levels, Brunei must navigate complex environmental and economic pressures. Can the nation leverage its financial resources to become a leader in sustainable development? The question of political evolution looms large in Brunei's future. As a traditional monarchy in a rapidly changing world, how will the Sultanate adapt its governance model to meet the expectations of an increasingly globalized citizenry? Education and innovation will likely play crucial roles in Brunei's future. The nation has invested heavily in human capital, but can it transform its well-educated population into a hub for innovation and entrepreneurship? As we project Brunei's trajectory, we must consider broader geopolitical shifts. The rising influence of neighboring powers and changing global alliances may require Brunei to recalibrate its international positioning. How will this small nation maintain its influence in an increasingly multipolar world? Ultimately, Brunei's story is one of transformation against the odds. It demonstrates that size isn't always destiny and that strategic resource management can elevate a nation beyond its apparent limitations. As we look to the future, the key question remains: can Brunei continue to defy expectations and chart a course of sustainable prosperity in an uncertain world?